We kind of get into what we're supposed to be talking about here is gear, but recently you moved from Brooklyn in New York, where you've been for years and years, to LA, and was that a financial thing? Was it more of you wanted to go on the separate coast, or was it more of like the things that you were doing and the opportunities were more open to being out in LA and California?
I always wanted to move to California. It was just something that had been on my mind for a long time. And I had a studio back in Brooklyn, and there was kind of a time period where that was getting taken over and switching hands. And I was visiting out here a lot because my brother had moved here and his family. And a lot of my friends are in LA too, and also I just wanted more space.
Yeah.
And I'd been living in an apartment for a long time, but had a separate studio space. And then being on the road and maintaining the studio, it just became a lot. So, I always had in my mind I want to find a house that I can either build a studio or has a studio. So I found a house, and my landlord who rents me this house, he's a film score guy, and he had built this beautiful studio. So when I saw this house, it kind of was like, okay, I think I found where I need to be. So it's been wonderful, man. And honestly, during this time with the weather and having outdoor space and having my studio space, I'm really happy here. There's things I miss about New York, but I travel, before this virus and after the virus, I travel so much that I get, even when I moved here, I'm still back in New York a lot, and it's just nice to have a home base here where I have some space. I can have my instruments around. I find myself playing a lot more guitar because I'm like messing around with different things, and it's just nice to have a space. Like I'm right now, I'm in my flip flops and my shorts, and that's pretty much how I always am now. When I was in New York, that you would never see me like that. So it's nice. It's nice.
You're full on beach bum.
Basically.
Well, you brought it up, all the guitars behind you, so let's get down to business, Eric. I think the most appropriate spot to start will be, your longtime association with Ibanez. I've seen you with the AS100, the GB models, and obviously you've got a signature model finally. Or not finally, but you've had
it's actually right behind. It's here, I'll grab it.
Talk to me about that process of, playing and being associated with Ibanez, and then finally, getting the phone call or the proverbial knock on the door to get it going and getting the signature.
Well, I met the Ibanez people through John Schofield many, many years ago, and they offered me to endorse their guitars, and we started talking about doing a signature model. It was a really long time ago, 15 years ago or something.
Wow.
And then different people had worked there. I originally, and so people changed hands, and Mike Taft was the guy that really brought it to fruition with me. And we just talked about all the different guitars that I'd loved that were Ibanez, that I had some other guitars where it's like, oh, I love the neck from this, but I wanted the binding from this. And I tried a lot of pickups, and it took years for the first one to come out, and this one, the EKM 100, and then over a couple years after that, and it's been out a while now, like 7 or 8 years, and then we created the next model, which is the EKM 10T, which has the Bigsby, because I actually modded this one and added the Bigsby.
Okay.
And then they were like, well, why don't we make a model that's a little more affordable, and we'll put the Bigsby. The Ibanez started making their own Bigsby, so they made that model, the EKM 10T, which is like more affordable. But what was cool, it was a great learning experience for me because I got to learn, because when we first created the EKM 100, I didn't realize how expensive the guitar was going to have to be, because I was like, oh man, I really want that. I want this. I want that. I want this. And so once we made it, it's a beautiful guitar, but it was a little bit hard for like the normal hobbyist to buy it. So it was important for me to also make another one that was more affordable and more around $1,000 or maybe less or whatever.
Yeah.
So learning about how to cut certain corners while maintaining the quality was a really cool learning experience for me. And also just seeing like how they make them and how the whole distribution process. And now I'm working with Mike Origo over there, and we're actually working on a couple new ideas for the next evolution of a model or even a couple, which might be smaller, lighter, and so we're
Nice.
it's been fun working with them, and I love that they get excited about things I get excited about. Like I said, at my core, I'm a nerd, and I love learning about all these things.
What?
So yeah, it's been.
I was gonna say,
fun.
was it true that the neck on that one was influenced or I guess modeled after a guitar that Derek had given you?
Yeah, Derek Trucks gave me, and that one's actually sitting right back there, that 335 back there.
Okay.
And he gave me that guitar after we had done a session down at his studio, and I loved it. And he was like, he hadn't been playing it, and he heard me playing it. He's like, oh man, you sound great on that guitar, da da da. And it was like a thicker, big neck, and I'd never been a guy that gravitated towards the bigger neck like that, but for some reason that guitar really spoke to me. And he was like, you should take that thing. And I was like, no. And I remember I went on the road from there, and when I got back to New York, it was at my place. He had sent it up there.